you get my response that I filed?
I did.
Okay.
I did, and it's right here. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I completely understand. The stipulations of bail were multiple stipulations. I couldn't leave the state without informing the court, and that I was not to discuss this case on any online media platform. First, I do, as I said before, with the court, I have property in Pennsylvania. So I would like for the bail to be reduced so that I can leave the state at my discretion.
Okay.
And I would also like the stipulation of my online presence and talking about this case for public interest to be removed from me. I have the First Amendment right to speak. I've not been convicted of a crime. So therefore, I believe that I have the right to speak in the online platform. I'm not being restricted from writing a book about it. I'm not being restricted to write a press article about it. I'm not restricted in any way, a pamphleteer. I'm just restricted on my online presence, and I believe that that's targeting me at that level.
Well, I apologize, Your Honor. I didn't file a written response to this one because I thought we had addressed it at the last hearing because you modified his bond term.
Correct.
So I apologize. I didn't file a written response to that. But, and I obviously have no objection to him relocating or moving out of state. With regards to the bond condition about the social media restriction, I would just note from the state's perspective that any type of ongoing social media or news presence would be an issue that could come into question for the jury selection and jury trial for tainting the jury panel. Obviously, I know that there's generally some pre-press or type publication type things that go on. Obviously, that's not at the request of the prosecutor's office. In fact, we discourage those kind of things. But the newspaper has the right to review records and that kind of thing, and does on its own make those wishes. I just know that in the past, Mr. Ballin has raised issues of bias and conflict and those sorts of issues. And I believe, from at least the state's perspective, that anything related to the type of charge here and the facts stemming from this case, the state might have a future motion, obviously saying he's trying to taint the jury pool by trying to sway potential jurors with whatever post he might make. So that would be the only argument that I would have to that. I obviously did not set that term. That was a term that was set by the magistrate. And it's an order that the state doesn't really have any say over, per se. But with regards to that request, that's the only point that I would point out, is that if it is related to this case, there is the potential for corrupting the jury panel.
Can I rebut that, Your Honor, real quickly? If I were to type out a document and place that without me speaking on it's just like writing a book. I'm not being restricted from my other First Amendment rights to print or documentation. It's only targeted towards my online presence. If the prosecutor is correct, then I would taint the jury pool by discussing this case, the officers, or anything pertaining to the case. Why isn't the stipulation also on my other First Amendment rights to publish this said information? If you're going to remove my First Amendment right to speak in that platform, then it only reasons that my other rights to publish, be it written or any other form of First Amendment dissemination of information to the public, should also be restricted.
Okay. Ms. Palmer, do you have anything?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, thanks. At this time right now, I am going, I have already given you permission to leave the state. And I'm going to actually modify it on this. At the last time, we didn't actually have a hearing, but I did give you permission, sir, to leave the state. Now, on your bond form, I am going to actually modify it so you can leave the state at your discretion, sir.
Okay, thank
The
you.
rest of the bond terms, I'm going to leave as they are.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so
Can I have a point of clarity? Does that also restrict me from publishing in any other form?
well, it's just exactly as the bond says.
Okay,
Not to talk about this case, officer, or Randolph County Commission on any social media platform until the case is dissolved.
okay, so I could publish in other forms, correct? Say, for example, Your Honor, if I were to go to the mainstream media and talk about this case, that's not social media, that's mainstream media. Do you see the dilemma I'm in?
I understand, sir.
And Your Honor, I understand that Mr. Ballin is pro se, but I think I have an ethical duty to let him know that any statements that he makes about this case can and could be used against him at any trial, because those would be statements made about his case. So, he does have a right to remain silent, and the state has a right to prove the case, which I think is also another one of his motions, but kind of not trying to mingle them, but I just want him to understand that which I believe is probably why the court was somewhat trying to restrict this, but any statements that he would make, with or without the advice of counsel, can be used against him pertaining to the facts and circumstances of this case, or his motive, or his reason. So I just want him to understand that may be why there's some restrictions, is to protect you, but because you are pro se, I wanted to make sure that was at least part of our discussion today, so that he understands that those types of communications would be subject to exhibits if we were to proceed to trial in this case.
Thank you.
And may I further point out that most mainstream media has online presence also. So, there's that fine line of what exactly is online presence. Does it exactly just mean my show or my online presence? Or if I go to the mainstream media and they publish it on their online service, would that be in violation of the order? And I'm just trying to get clarity so that I'm not in contempt of court.
So, all right, as I said, I'm just going to keep the bond just exactly as it is, other than I'm going to modify it.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me out,
Yes.
Your Honor.